5 who are claiming universal credit receive the same rate as their peers, peers who are far more likely to be able to access support from their parents. That means that young people under 25 receive £81.77 less in universal credit per month compared to those who are over 25. It's a 21% reduction. So what this bill would do, it would complement proposals by providing increased financial support for care leavers who are currently living on the lowest incomes. It would mean that care leavers claiming universal credit would see their monthly payment increase to a total of £393.45. That monthly figure is a sum not dissimilar to the daily allowance members of your Lordship's House can claim. It's not a huge sum to live on. I do thank those who've made time to participate in this debate on a Friday, not least the Minister and the Shadow Minister for the constructive conversations that we've had in advance, and the group of care-experienced young people facilitated by the charity Become, who were very generous with their time and shared some extremely perceptive insights with myself and my Right Reverend friend, the Bishop of Derby here, about the differences that this policy change would make to their lives. They've agreed that we can name them in our speeches today. My Lords, there's over 92,000 care leavers in England under the age of 25. I argue that this cohort of young adults is in particular need of further support, including through the social security system. What this bill would do is it would equalise the standard allowance for universal credit for care leavers under the age of 25. But that is just one of a number of steps that I think could be made to ensure that young care leavers receive the support they need in order to flourish. I hope in this debate there'll be an opportunity for noble lords to explore perhaps these and other steps today and commit ourselves to supporting young adults leaving care. If I can set out the problem, many of the young people we talked to last week spoke about the additional support they would have benefited from, particularly leading up to the age of 18, just before they reach that age. We know, research shows over and over again, that being in care is one of the key adverse childhood experiences that can exacerbate problems in later life. And of course, you often go into care because of other things that are on that list of key adverse childhood experiences. And no matter how well the state has performed its role as corporate parent, whether that's through foster parents or through a children's home, no matter how well that work has been done in those formative years, it's still the case that young care leavers are likely to have had significant adverse experiences. And so I believe, my Lords, they merit a higher level of support in those early years of adulthood. At the same time, we know, many of us have personal experience, that financial dependence on older relatives continues longer into adulthood than in previous decades. Around half of 24-year-olds still live with their parents, but actually it's less than 1/5 of all care leavers in that 19 to 21 age group who are with a parent, relative or foster carer. So most young care leavers, to put it bluntly, don't have the financial cushion of the bank of mum and dad or any equivalent to it. Some foster carers do manage to provide that important bridging facility through staying put and staying close schemes, but actually for a very large number of young care leavers there is no family home to go back to. The state has been their family, and I believe it should accept some ongoing responsibility, and that's what I'm trying to achieve through this bill today, my Lords. Young care leavers, moreover, are significantly more likely to be not in education, employment or training compared to the general population. 3 times as likely, 39% of care leavers in age 19 to 21, what we call NEETs. That would compare to an estimate of 13% of all young people in that age range. 39%, almost 2 in every 5, compared with a figure of about 1 in 8. The benefit system does not recognise currently the specific circumstances that have led a young person to be taken to care, and it doesn't recognise their unique issues that they're going to face throughout their life. It's vital, for example, that staff at job centres can identify care leavers and are equipped to respond to their particular needs. We've also learned from the conversations we've had that care leavers are 3 times more likely to be sanctioned in the benefit system than their peers. One young woman, Louise, explained that it was not a simple process. She had to work through pages and pages of information. There was no proper guide, no help when she was missing an appointment because of morning sickness during her pregnancy, job coaches that she was assigned who didn't know what a care leaver was. My lords, it's almost a decade now since the Children's Society produced its research on sanctions for care leavers. Will the Department for Work and Pensions look into whether under 25s who present as care leavers are disproportionately affected by benefit sanctions? Some young care leavers, as a result of sanctions combined with a lower rate, are left with something closer to £200 a month, £50 a week. That cannot, my lords, be enough to live on. So equalising universal credit is one small thing the state could do to perhaps exercise its extended parental role, to put those young care leavers on a path that's a bit closer to that of their peers. And this bill, my lords, is a way of achieving that. There was, my lords, universal agreement among the care leavers who met with us last week. The under 25 rate is not sufficient to meet their needs. Many are struggling to pay bills. The Joseph Rowntree Foundation, the Trussell Trust have shown that that reduced rate means that young people are left with about half of what's needed to afford essentials like food and water and clothing, even though under 25s are the age group at greatest risk of experiencing destitution. Charisse, who met with us, noted that care leavers are much more likely to be living independently from a younger age. After the gas, electric bills, TV licence, etc., she had about £60 per month to eat. As a result, she was visiting food banks to survive, couldn't meet up with friends, could barely even travel. And again, when you've not got family behind you, to be able to travel to meet up with such relationships as you've been able to form is really, really important. Some local authorities help. There's a discretionary rule that they can exempt care leavers from council tax in those early years. The majority of local authorities do that. But of course, if you move authority, and we know that so many care experienced young people are in care homes in the poorest parts of the country. If they're going to get a job, and we want them to get jobs, they have to move to somewhere where it's easier to find work. The local authority in their new setting is very much less likely to grant them exemption from council tax than where they were officially in care. For so many, they've noted with us that if they just had that extra the extra rate, the extra 21%, the over 25 rate of universal credit, that would have given them stability, avoided debt, helped with their mental health. We're not creating a new principle with this bill. The local housing allowance system already recognises that care leavers are a special case, and they get the one-bedroom rate rather than the lower shared accommodation rate. So the principle that we could treat care leavers as a special case is already there in law. This bill simply wants to extend it to the universal credit part of the welfare system. How much will it cost? Barnardo's and the Children's Society have estimated it will cost just under £25 million per year if you considered all care leavers under the age of 25 who are not in employment, education or training. It could be even less than that because some will be in other households where others are earning. This small investment, and it is small in national terms, could have significant human and financial benefits, reducing the risk of poverty, of mental ill health, of homelessness, of debt. So will the Department for Work and Pensions look at the data it holds on care leavers to make an assessment of what it thinks the cost would be of raising the standard allowance for this cohort? We're going with the charity figures because that's the only figures that we have. My Lords, I note a number of measures contained within the Children's Wellbeing and Schools Bill that's currently making its way through the Commons that would support young care leavers. But this would perhaps be another way of bringing about this change, and I'd welcome any conversations with noble lords about introducing such changes when that bill makes its way to your Lordship's House. In conclusion, my Lords, with targeted support through the social security system as they take their first steps into adulthood, young care leavers would have a basis from which to afford essential goods, maintain contact with support networks and enter into the world of work. The moral case for making the change is strong. These are young people for whom the state has effectively been the corporate parent, and we as the corporate parent, as the state, can support them better into adulthood in the same way that parents, including I myself, I declare an interest, are done for our own children well into adulthood. I do look forward to hearing the speeches of other noble lords today, not least from those who were in the care system or experienced being fostered formally or informally as children themselves. and then to working with peers across this House to facilitate this important change. My Lords, I beg to move.
The question is that this bill be now read a second time.
My Lords, we owe a debt to the Right Reverend Prelate, the Bishop of